Hello my dear children, this is Roshni from Learner Hub, the free learning platform where you get to learn physics, chemistry, maths, biology absolutely for free at learnerhub.com. So I am here today with the third video of the video series on Natural Resources Class 9 Science, and in this video we are going to learn about water pollution, causes and control. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. So let us now talk about another very important natural resource, that is water, which is what the synonym of water is life, because every life form needs water for their survival. So talking about importance of water is like very obvious and needless, and also the list is huge. It is an important resource which is needed for survival of all sorts of life forms, whether it is plants or animals. We ourselves use water for so many different purposes. For example, drinking, cooking, taking bath, washing clothes, cleaning house, cleaning utensils. So for all of these we need water. Not only that, water also plays a very crucial role inside our body. It helps in transporting the nutrients to different cells of the body. At the same time, it also helps in excreting out the wastes from our body. Not only that, if you look at the plants, there also, if you stop watering a plant for a week or so, what happens? The plant dries up and gradually it even dies. So water is very critical for plants to grow, because all the nutrients and minerals that are needed by the plants, they are absorbed by the plants through water, because everything is present, all the nutrients are present in the water in dissolved form. So water is extremely important. But these days what we see is, with increasing population, the demand of water is also increasing, because everybody needs water. Nobody can survive without water. So as a result, what is happening? We are seeing that there is some shortage of water. Basically, what's happening is the population is increasing. So the number of people who needs water, that's increasing. So the demand of water is increasing. But the source of water, because from where do we get water? So primarily water is obtained from the water bodies, whether you talk about oceans, lakes, ponds, rivers, or the underground water. So those are the various sources of water. So the supply of water is not increasing in pace with the increasing population. So as a result, we are seeing shortage of water. And this shortage of water is threatening, because without water, nobody will be able to survive. So everybody needs water. So what can we do? So one simple thing that we can do is we should stop wasting water, because if we waste water, what's happening? So anyways, we have less water, which is not able to fulfill the demand of the increasing population. On top of that, if we waste water also, then the shortage becomes all the more. So we should stop unnecessary wastage of water, so that at least, we can at least demand the basic needs of the increasing population. But with water also, there is contamination of unwanted materials, which is kind of polluting the water. So let us discuss about water pollution. So what is water pollution? Contamination of water bodies with undesirable substances. So what could be these undesirable substances? So these substances could be insecticides, fertilizers, ammonia. So let me write it down. What could be these substances? They could be detergents, which are like partially soluble in water, but at the same time they are strong chemicals. It could be insecticides or pesticides, which are often used for cultivating to increase the crop yield. We often use insecticides, pesticides, fertilizers. So all of these are basically nothing but chemicals. So when you mix chemicals with water, what's happening? The water is no more pure. It is getting contaminated. It could also be some strong elements like ammonia. Sometimes even the excreta gets mixed up with water, because you would have come across a lot of places, especially the pilgrimage places in India, where you see that a lot of people, they pass urine in water bodies, or they pass their excreta in the water bodies. So what's happening? So your urine or excreta, they are nothing but they contain all the waste materials of your body, and those waste materials, they are getting dumped into the water. So the water is getting polluted. So all of these could be the undesirable substances that might be present in water and that might be polluting water. So all of these are termed as, in one word, we can call them as water pollutants. That means the undesirable substances which pollute water are called water pollutants. Now, when we talk about water bodies, what are these water bodies? These water bodies could be lakes, rivers, oceans, ponds. So all of these are water bodies. Now, how is water pollution harmful? Now, they have severe harmful effects. For example, the first threat would be the aquatic life forms, because whether you talk about a pond or a lake or a river or an ocean, so in each of these water bodies there is a huge diversity of life. That is, there are huge number of plants and animals which live in the water. So if the water gets polluted, what happens? The fishes, dolphins, crabs, etc., which live in water, they completely depend on water for the survival. So the water is polluted, so they all die. Disease and even deaths of humans, because like human beings as well as other animals, they all consume water directly or indirectly. Now, if the water is contaminated, they can cause many severe diseases. For example, in human beings, they can cause diseases like cholera or typhoid. So these are all waterborne diseases. Like, that's why you would have seen that people often say that, do not drink water from unhygienic places, because if the place is not hygienic, so there are chances that the water would be dirty. The water might contain some harmful chemicals, and when you drink that water, you might fall ill, right? Sometimes in severe cases, this can even lead to death of a lot of people. Skin problems. In fact, taking bath in contaminated water can cause several skin infections due to the microbial infection, because the contaminated water will not only contain harmful chemicals, it will also contain some harmful microorganisms, maybe some bacteria or some fungi, and those bacteria and fungi might cause several type of infection on the skin. Adversely affect plant growth and productivity. Now, not only animals, a lot of aquatic plants are also present, right? So, and those plants are again totally dependent on the water of the water bodies. So, if the water is contaminated, those plants will also die. They will also not grow properly. And the water which is used for irrigating your fields, that water also comes from a lot of water bodies. For example, it doesn't rain every day, right? So even if you want to irrigate your field, sometimes you also depend on the water of the nearby river or the nearby lake. So if that water in that lake or river is contaminated, then what will happen? You are bringing that contaminated water and watering the crops in your field. So all those plants will also not grow properly, their productivity will also reduce. Disturb the food chain. Now this is interesting. Now what happens inside the water? Now let's say that the water is contaminated. Okay, so the water is contaminated. That means the water is polluted. It contains harmful substances. Now this water might be consumed by the small fish which lives inside the sea or ocean. Now this small fish might get a disease because of the contaminated water, or it might die. Now let's say that a diseased fish in turn is eaten by a big fish. So what will happen? So the big fish also might die, or it might get a disease. Now this diseased fish might be eaten up by a human being. So what will happen? The human being might also get a disease, or the human being might die. So if you look at this entire food chain, what is food chain? Where one organism is eaten by the other organism. So if one organism is impacted, for example, in this case, it was only the small fish which directly drank the contaminated water. The big fish didn't come in contact with the contaminated water, or the man didn't drink the contaminated water, but they indirectly consumed the small fish, and as a result the man also suffered from a disease or death. So basically this entire food chain is getting impacted. So it is not only one set of organisms which are impacted, but the entire food chain which involves that organism gets impacted. So as a result, the entire aqueous ecosystem gets spoiled. Now the important thing that we need to think about is the cause of water pollution, because if we want to come up with a solution for water pollution, because we know that it is not good, it has so much of harmful effects. So in order to find a solution, first we need to know what are the causes of water pollution. The first cause is wastewater. Now, the chemicals washed down the drains of our household, or the chemicals which are discharged from factories, they are highly toxic, and all these water in the drains, those drains gradually meet some nearby pond or lake, and those lakes meet in some river, the rivers meet in some ocean. So basically all these waste materials which are there in our nearby drains, they are gradually going to meet up a bigger water body, and it is going to pollute that water body. So this discharging of direct discharge of wastewater into bigger water bodies cause pollution. So that is one cause. Untreated sewage. Now, proper disposal of sewage would mean treating the sewage. So what do we mean by treating the sewage? Now, we all know that sewage will definitely contain a lot of harmful chemicals and harmful substances, even harmful bacteria or other microbes. But there are options that we can treat the sewage. That means we make the sewage undergo some primary and secondary treatment, so that the more toxic chemicals which are present in the sewage can be converted into less toxic materials. So at least we can reduce the toxic level of the sewage. For example, if we use flush toilets in our households, so the flush toilets take sewage waste quickly and hygienically away from our homes. So flush toilets are better. Now, sewage disposed into water untreated can severely and badly pollute the water, and this happens. Now, forget about untreated sewage. A lot of times, as I mentioned just now, that a lot of people, they don't even use toilets. They directly urinate or pass excreta in the water bodies. So that means what happens? The water gets polluted extremely badly. Chemical wastes. Now, a lot of highly toxic chemicals are also released from various factories which deals with many chemicals. Even the detergents, they also contain highly toxic chemicals. Now, some of the highly toxic chemicals like PCB, polychlorinated biphenyls, or even the batteries contain many harmful wastes like lead, cadmium, mercury. So all of these kind of wastes come out of factories, and they should never be dumped into water bodies, but actually they are dumped into water bodies. Plastics. Now, we all know that plastics are not biodegradable, but at the same time, being light, they float easily. So when we discharge or when we throw plastics, used plastics, maybe a plastic bottle, you bought a plastic bottle containing water, you drank the water, now the bottle is of no use, you just threw the bottle into the nearby river. So what happened to that bottle? The bottle being light, it is like floating on the water. Now what might happen is that plastic might get consumed by a fish or any other organism which live in that river. And the plastic may cause that fish to choke and therefore kill them, because plastics are not digestible. They are not edible. So they will cause the fish to choke and it will kill it. Use of insecticides and pesticides. Now, these days we have also seen that just to increase the crop yield, what happens? The farmers use excessively insecticides and pesticides. So insecticides and pesticides, they are used to kill the insects or pests that might spoil the plant. But when we use these insecticides and pesticides in excess amount, what happens? Sometimes with the rain, the insecticides and pesticides are also get washed away along with the rainwater, and they get deposited, or they get discharged into the water bodies like the nearby river or lake. And that's how these harmful chemicals, and these are very strong harmful chemicals, because you see, they have the capability to kill insects and pests. So they are extremely powerful chemicals, and they get discharged into the water bodies and thereby polluting them. Dead bodies. Dead bodies, in the earlier days, dead bodies were always released into the water. So when dead bodies are released into water, what happens? Now, as the body decays, a lot of chemicals get released from the body, and those poisonous chemicals get released into the water and therefore pollutes the water. So therefore, these days, disposal of dead bodies into the water is not allowed. Not only these, besides, we also have a lot of radio wastes, that means radioactive wastes. So radioactive wastes, even in small concentration, can cause deadly diseases like cancer. In high concentration, it can directly kill animals. So wastes from nuclear power plants have radioactive wastes, and these radioactive wastes, if directly discharged into the water bodies, is going to make the water deadly. Now, when we talk about water pollution, algal bloom is something which needs attention. So what is algal bloom? So it is excessive growth of algae on the water surface which imparts a color to the water body. Now, have you ever seen a green layer of grass-like structure on the surface of a pond or a lake? I think this is a common scenario in a lot of places. So just try to observe this. Whenever you go around and see lakes and ponds, just see if you ever come across a lake which has a green carpet-like layer on its surface. So what is that green layer? That is nothing but algae, and that is excessive growth of algae. So algae has grown so much that it kind of imparts a color to the water body. So the water is no more like the light blue original color of water. It imparts a green color to the water as well. So this algal bloom generally occur in freshwater or marine water bodies. The discoloration of water happens due to high density of the pigmented cells of the algae, because algae have a specific color of its own due to the presence of some colored pigments. For example, the green color might be due to chlorophyll. Similarly, certain algae are red in color. So all these colors are due to some specific pigments, and when there is excess of algae, there is excess of that pigment also, and which gives that color to the water. Now, what is the cause of this algal bloom? The cause is excess of nutrients. That is excess of nutrients like phosphates due to excess use of fertilizers on agricultural land. As I was telling just now, just to increase the crop productivity, sometimes too much of fertilizers are applied to the field. Now what happens during rains? These excess of fertilizers might get washed away and get discharged into the nearby water body. And this excess of fertilizers, when they reach the river, they contain a lot of phosphates or nitrates, and all of these excess of nutrients favor the growth of lot of algae. And what do algae need to grow? They need sunlight, slow moving water, and excess nutrients. So excess nutrients is provided from the fertilizers which are rich in phosphates. So excess nutrients are provided by the fertilizers which are rich in phosphates. Sunlight, anyways, it is there. And slow moving water, if the water is not moving very fast. That's why I told you that you would have seen this algal bloom either in some nearby pond or lake, because the water in ponds or lakes are not that fast moving when compared to sea or river. Now what could be the effects of this algal bloom? So the effect is that it becomes extremely toxic to humans and animals. So the presence of algal bloom, it kind of, so much of presence of algae, what happens? Algae takes the entire upper surface of the water. So all the animals which are living inside, they kind of get suffocated. They do not get sufficient light and sufficient nutrients that they need to survive. So the entire aquatic life is spoiled. At the same time, the water is like mixed with so much of harmful chemicals. So the water from such a water body is not drinkable. So the aquatic life is killed, the water quality is spoiled. Increases treatment costs for drinking water, because it might happen that, let's say that there is a pond and in the neighboring area you do not have any other water body, so you are totally dependent on that pond for drinking water, but there is algal bloom which has developed on that pond. So now you know that the water of that pond is not suitable for drinking, but you do not have any other alternative. So what would you do? You would make that water of that pond undergo the entire treatment process where you will purify that water. But this entire process of purification of water will consume a lot of costs, because the more polluted the water is, the more would be the treatment costs. So in this case, the treatment cost increases a lot. Now let's talk about the insecticides and the pesticides. As discussed just now, that when we use these things in excess in an agricultural land, and if let's say that you applied too much of insecticides, pesticides or fertilizers or whatever today, and maybe within a day or two there was good amount of rain, so what happens, the rainwater will wash away the soil containing all these chemicals and they will discharge them into the nearby water body. So directly it will impact the aquatic life. Firstly, so much of toxic chemicals will be harmful for humans and animals who are dependent on the water of that water body. Secondly, it will directly kill the aquatic life. Thirdly, again, if you want to use the water of that water body for drinking purposes, the treatment cost would increase. So the purification cost would definitely increase. It adversely affect the plant growth, because too much of chemicals will definitely not promote plant growth. It will have an adverse impact. Sewage, as I mentioned, that wastewater needs to be removed from a community for healthy living. So, and what is this wastewater all about? Now, what is sewage basically? For those who are not aware, what is sewage? So, sewage is the wastewater which comes out of each of our houses every day. It could be the water which is coming out from the toilets, or the water which is coming out from your bathroom outlets. So, all this is wastewater, and the wastewater coming out from an entire community where there are multiple houses. So, that collective wastewater is termed as sewage. So, where do we send this sewage and how do we send it? That is very important. So, if this sewage, which contains so much of harmful things, is directly discharged into a water body, so undoubtedly the water body gets polluted. So, therefore, inappropriate disposal of sewage can definitely cause pollution, because the water body gets polluted and then the same water is going to be utilized by us for many different purposes again. So we cannot use that polluted water for bathing or cooking or drinking. So again, the treatment will cost us huge. Now the question is, how does sewage discharge harm aquatic life? So when we discharge sewage into the water bodies, what happens is, the microbes or the microorganisms which are present, they cause biodegradation of the organic matter. So what do we mean by that? So organic matter, that is which can be broken down by the microorganisms further. Now when this biodegradation takes place, what happens? The microbes, in order to do this biodegradation, the microbes also need some amount of energy. Like we do some work, we need energy to do that work. Similarly, these microbes also, to perform biodegradation of organic matter, they also need some energy. So all the oxygen which is present inside the water, that is used up by the microbes to do this biodegradation. Right? So what's going to happen? So for the aquatic organisms, there is no more oxygen left, because most of the oxygen is actually used up by the microorganisms to break down organic matter. So the aquatic life, like the fishes or the aquatic plants, they also need oxygen, but for them there is shortage of oxygen. And without oxygen, what would happen? Life forms will not be able to survive. So therefore, this kills the aquatic life. So basically, when we dispose sewage into the water, so sewage is what? It contains a lot of microorganisms also, like bacteria and all. It also contains a lot of harmful chemicals. It also contains a lot of organic matter. So the moment all of these is dumped into the water body, the microbes start their job. They start to biodegrade or break down the organic matter, and they start consuming up all the oxygen that is present in water, and lack of oxygen kills the normal aquatic life. Now let's look at the steps that we can take to control water pollution. So first thing is proper sewage disposal only after sewage treatment. This is very, very important. So in your senior classes, you will learn about the detailed sewage treatment, which involves a primary treatment and a secondary treatment, where the more toxic the sewage, which contains very, very toxic substances gets converted into less toxic substances, and then that less toxic form of sewage is disposed into the water bodies. So therefore it will not pollute the water that much. So proper sewage treatment is a must. Segregation of wastes, that is also important, so that the biodegradable wastes and the non-biodegradable wastes are kept separately, because as we saw that the biodegradable wastes, they can be further broken down to kind of recycle them to for some other uses, whereas the non-biodegradable wastes like plastics, they cannot be further broken down. Now if we mix the biodegradable and the non-biodegradable, then even the biodegradable cannot be recycled in any way, because it is mixed up with the waste with the non-biodegradable ones. So both the waste should be segregated. Shallow ponds should be preferred over bigger ones for domestic and industrial wastes, because the domestic and industrial wastes actually contain a lot of chemicals and harmful substances. So if we dump them into, because the shallow ponds are the old ponds, and therefore what happens is they are not very deep, so therefore the amount of aquatic life that they contain is also lesser than that of the deeper ponds. So the shallow pond should be given more preference for disposing wastes than the deep ponds. Besides that, when I was talking about the segregation of wastes, there is another important point that you should remember. So when we segregate wastes, then basically what happens is the sewage that comes out of our house, that sewage doesn't contain vegetable wastes, because vegetable wastes are biodegradable waste. So those wastes should not be present in our sewage. Avoid the use of fertilizer before rain, because if you use excess of fertilizers and then it is followed by rain, then the rain would wash away all these fertilizers and pollute the nearby water body.
So children, I hope you found these videos useful, and do make sure that you watch all the 8 videos of the video series on Natural Resources Class 9 Science, and I am sure these videos are definitely going to help you. If you have a feedback to share, do let me know in the comment section. I would be more than happy to hear from you. I will meet you all very soon with a new video with a new topic. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.